Greetings and welcome everyone to this week's Real Talk with your host, Zakia Sankara Jabbar. And I'm excited about this
Oh, I
week's
can't
show.
hear.
Can
I
can you
can't
hear
hear.
me? I
I
can
can.
hear you.
You can.
Uh-huh. Make sure you don't have it on mute. Audience, let us know where you are watching from and let me know if you guys can hear me in the chat. Let me know if you all can hear me. Let me know where you're watching from, city and state or country. Um, I want to make sure y'all can hear me because it looks like I am unmuted. So let me um,
Um,
let me see if people can hear me. Okay, looks like people can hear me.
I still can't hear.
That is so weird. Okay, well maybe she's gonna come back. Technical difficulties that happens sometime. What's up, y'all? I'm trying to be more consistent with this show, y'all. So this one's tonight. Okay, thanks, brother Quatwell. This show tonight is gonna be very interesting. It's a very controversial topic. And this sister Marley is no nonsense. She keeps it real. I just love her style. Like I love her energy and all of that. And you guys can see the link to her piece in the description to this video. And also, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button when you come in, and make sure you share this broadcast. We want to make sure that we have an interactive conversation with you all tonight, because this is going to be a really good show. Can you hear me, Marley?
I can't hear you now.
See, we not letting technical difficulties get us off of our rocker. We just
Oh
not.
no.
We
Oh
not
no.
doing.
Oh no.
But anyway, Sister Marley,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is my first
Yes.
live.
Yes, me too. So, introduce yourself to the audience. Let people know a little bit more about you.
Well, I am Marley K. I write. I'm a writer. I'm a freelancer. While I do write, I also do other commentary for other organizations. I'm a published author, and my background is in nonprofit management, and I'm working fundraising, so I know where all the federal money is.
Oh, okay. So me and you need to talk after this because I'm also in nonprofit. So yeah, me and you need to
Okay.
have a whole nother separate conversation all about that. I don't
Okay.
want no federal money though, but we'll talk about
Okay. Okay. Well, that's okay. I know where all the money is. I know all where all the money resides. I know where it
you know where
is.
the money resides. Hey man,
Hmm.
that young man blew up after that. Do you hear me? I
Yes,
still
it
follow
is.
him. He
Really.
is hilarious. He is hilarious. Um, cool. So, you really struck a chord with
Yeah.
your piece a couple weeks ago, right? And I
Yeah.
remember I actually saw it from Dr. Tommy Curry, who is someone that I have a deep amount of admiration and respect for, just as a scholar, just as somebody who loves Black people.
Me too.
And I saw him share it, and I was like, "Ooh, the title!" Like, got me. I was like, "Okay." I was like, so I read it, and it was like a 9-minute read. I was like, "Oh, this sister making sure she explaining, she breaking it down, all of that good stuff. Ain't gonna be no excuses, right?"
Mm, that's right.
And so I shared it, and I remember you commented or you like replied to me, and you were just like, thanks for sharing, and you had mentioned that you had got a lot of pushback on it too, and I was just like, what is the pushback? Like what? Like everything that you said is validated, like period.
Right.
So anyway, I just so people will know your piece, how Roe versus Wade is a fight about white power. Definitely, like I said, set the internet ablaze 2 weeks ago. And I guess just as an entry point for people in the audience who who haven't read it yet and are watching this like live right now,
Mhm.
tell us what impelled you to write this expose, knowing that people would purposely misinterpret your analysis in order to evade the legitimacy of this accusation.
Well, I was curious about the time frame. They in the media they kept talking about how long Roe versus Wade have been um, the law of the land, and it was
Hmm.
possibly getting ready to be rolled back. So I just started doing research,
Hmm.
and as I researched, I saw when the bill, when the law came into um, action, and then how long it lasted. And then I just started researching different policies associated with it. And
Hmm.
I just noticed the year after Roe versus Wade was passed that, Henry Kissinger came up with this bill, or this conference that basically came up with a plan
Hmm. Dr. Umar
to,
has referred to that one too.
yeah, it's basically a plan to depopulate Africa and India and Latin America in order for white women to be able to have babies. So, it's like a trade off. So they get to have their abortions, and then we, may in here in America, we were able to have abortions. But, some people in other countries, it's just simple US aid, birth control for food, sterilization for food, and they just basically pick and choose who they want to live, and everything comes at the expense of somebody else in the system of white supremacy. And so I just wanted to tie those things together, and people
Hmm.
just didn't really appreciate it, but I was just curious, in the
Hmm.
beginning.
What were some of the main arguments? And this is just a follow up to this question. Like, what were some of the main arguments of the pushback that you got that you can recall?
Mostly about, I will say this, I didn't hardly get any pushback from Black people. Black people who read the piece got it. People who were brown people who read it, they got it, they understood, because we have this, way of knowing. Um,
Hmm.
and
Absolutely.
I got a lot of pushback from white women, and I got a lot of pushback from white men who are, supposed to, I guess you call them supporters of white feminism. And they wanted to make sure that all women have access. And their argument was that, women should have a choice, women should have the option. And, I was like, we've had other techniques we've used throughout history
History,
to
yes.
not have to have abortions. People
Right.
find a way to not get pregnant if they don't want to get pregnant. And
Right.
so um, just their lack of history and everything just was really annoying to me. And then their lack of understanding that the trade-off is, in order for them to have what they want, other women that were not white had to sacrifice, their fertility, and they just didn't care. So
They didn't even mention how you tied into how the U.S. aid and the trade off would be that African women or Latin women or Latina women or just other women in India and other places had to get sterilized or had to get on birth control. They didn't even address that at all.
a few of them did, and they said, they didn't know that
A lot
Roe
of
versus
people
Wade.
don't know that. Yeah,
Yes. So they didn't know, and they were like, I'm gonna have to sit with this because I don't understand. But the majority of the women were just, it's all about me, me, me. Women should have the right to do what they
very
wanted to
selfish.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so that was eye opening for me too. So it doesn't really matter. It just fit in line with white supremacists. They don't care about us. They just do whatever they want to do, and we are collateral damage.
right. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, man. I knew you would get pushback, and I'm actually surprised I haven't like received a note, you know what I mean, about like, like in the advertising of this. I'm actually really interested in the comments because like I have my family, people who watch me every week and everything. So I know that they'll be in the comments, with questions and things like that. But I'd be interested to see if we get any trolls tonight. So you brought up the white feminist, right? So that's the next question that I have for you. Please, break down this attempt by white feminists to use racial disparities to recruit Black women in their reinterpretation of Roe versus Wade.
Well, I will say that because I'm a grant writer, I'm a data person, so I'm always looking for data.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've always found is that all the information that we use came from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you look at these organizations, the language, if you don't read it carefully, it's very tricky.
Yes.
They don't have definite numbers when you talk about how many Black women versus how many white women. They, say it's an estimated number, but it's not specific. And you look
Wow.
at Planned Parenthood and, just where they get their money from, basically the funders. They cater to the funders. And so the data that is collected is not really accurate data that we can
Mm-hmm.
use. And they don't want to give us the numbers because,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they don't reflect what they say. And
Right.
so white feminists tend to use those numbers and Planned Parenthood and just vagueness. And I just discovered just doing my research, there's no way for us to be able to tell,
Right.
how many people have an abortion, how many Black people have an abortion. So
Um, in New York, though, and I don't know if you found this in your research, I think I remember seeing a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, that there was some data about how many Black babies had been aborted just in New York City alone over a span of a couple of decades.
I did see that, but
That was
again,
nuts.
I was wary because I like to see the year and the month. Like it was just again kind of general, and they lumped this large number of years and data together for these different places, but you
Hmm.
don't know um, how many Black women, how many Hispanic women, how many white women. They'll say, in this state and a certain number of women had an abortion, but it's just really difficult
To
for you to
get the
find that
racial
information.
breakdown.
Yeah, and the government, they don't fund abortion per se. I used to work in sexual assault, so um, they fund the morning after pill for victims of sexual assault if they want to have that at the time, but you actually have to present and have a SANE exam. So there's a process for that. They don't technically give abortions. And then they do have an abortion process, but like it's so much. like you have to do so much to have an abortion if you were sexually assaulted that most people just don't do it.
Wow.
um, because you have to have a police report. All these people have to know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot. And then we've had situations where young girls were sexually assaulted, and they most times don't have abortions. Most times they have the babies and the children, either the family takes the child or the child is put up for adoption. So they
Wow.
just have different scenarios, but I just felt like we just don't have enough information, and I feel like they just pull us in and use us to carry their
Ooh.
mantle and co-op our movement.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's definitely some validity to that. I'll tell you, recently I learned through a friend that young women, very young women, can actually, not even women, they're in high school. For example, a 14-year-old in here in the state of Maryland can have an abortion without their parents' knowledge. Do you know
Yep.
some states have those kind of laws? I know New York is one of them. I was shocked. I was like, what? I
Yep.
was like, she can't even go get a dental procedure done without her parents, but she can get an abortion?
Yeah. It's depopulation. They don't want a bunch of poor, what they deem poor people, or people who make bad choices, Black and brown people anyway. And that's their way of doing it. It's why all the clinics primarily are in low income or poor communities.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where those pregnancy centers and Planned Parenthoods, they don't put them in the suburbs. They don't put them in the nice neighborhoods. They put them where we live so we can have easy access to them.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is designed to do harm to us or control us. I guess that's the best way to say it. Control us.
I think control is definitely the operative word. They've been controlling us in our reproductive systems since enslavement, right?
Yep.
You know, we were forced to reproduce when it was in to their benefit, right? Like we were like forced to reproduce to make more slaves.
Hmm.
Um, but now it's like, oh, okay, slavery's over. We kind of don't need y'all anymore, you know.
Right. We can get other people to come do
Like,
what
we
y'all
don't need
used to
y'all.
do.
Actually, we don't want y'all, you know.
That's it. They don't want us.
Eugenics. That's exactly right. Somebody just commented. Jessica here says eugenics. That's exactly right. And people don't realize eugenics has just continued to proliferate. Unfortunately, welcome everybody. If you're new, coming in, come
Hi.
on in, come on in. I am interviewing Sister Marley K. You will see in the description here a link to her Medium page. So we want to encourage you all to follow that and subscribe to that. Also, you can follow her on Twitter. That link is also in the description. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button when you come in. If you're new here, you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. So I'm going to just pivot here to the next question. And because I think this piece is really important, this next question. So, can you speak on the way we often absolve white women of their role in the maintenance of this white supremacist system?
I would say we tend to overlook them. We tend to focus more on the white men,
Mm-hmm.
because they are aggressive and overtly
Mm-hmm.
um, racist and
Mm-hmm.
just cruel. And
Right.
so we tend to not see or understand the cunning and manipulation
Say it.
from white women. And so they have a way of, I guess, bringing us into their plans. So, whatever it is that they want to do, they understand they need the numbers, and our numbers and our enthusiasm about whatever we get behind usually moves things. And so we tend
Mm-hmm.
to overlook what they actually present to us, and just trust them, take them at face value, because we're kind, loving, caring people, and we're trying to do the right thing, but we just don't really understand that they too operate like white men. But they don't
Absolutely.
they don't they're not overt in their actions the way that, you know, white supremacist males are.
You said the operative word earlier, cunning, right?
Yeah,
Very
that's
much so. Especially
what
the
it
white
is.
liberal women who would probably be the women who would be advocating for this. Um,
They are the worst, I would say. That I
I
got more pushback
agree.
from more liberal women because they don't tend to understand. They just they move by emotions and feelings. They
Not
don't.
only that, they know better than you. Like, oh, you just need to be
Yes,
educated. You know what I mean?
yes,
The liberal, like, they're very condescending and patronizing.
yeah. You're right, and they told me that too with this piece. So I don't really understand.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
just don't
honey,
understand. Yeah, you just,
yeah, I have
yeah,
worked in
you just
sexual
need to be
assault.
educated. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, I've had a friend a long time ago who had an abortion, and I went
I have
with
friends
her.
who've had abortions too.
It was the most awful experience. Not the abortion itself, just going into the clinic. You
Hmm.
know, white people outside with
Protesting.
signs, babies threatening you, like getting up close to you. I was like, "Girl, are you sure you want to do this?"
Right.
And so it was really scary. It's like something that I will never forget.
Hmm.
And that was, you know, over 20 years ago. But just how the whole thing, they want to have abortion. They don't want you to have abortion. They want you to keep the baby. Then when you have the baby, they don't want to take care of the baby. They don't want to. The foster care system is in shambles. Like I was just like, I don't understand.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, I think this is an interesting comment right here from Jessica. She was saying the governor of Connecticut, his great grandfather was a Rockefeller and a huge promoter of eugenics. And so he's pushing this very hard. That's interesting.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes, yes.
appreciate that comment, Jessica.
They want us to depopulate ourselves, and they sell it to us in a way that we're comfortable for. We should be okay with having abortions because it's a good thing, and you
Hmm.
don't want the unwanted pregnancy. But we don't understand that we are diminishing our numbers, we're reducing our power. You know, I don't know if people understand about the cycles of fertility, and there are some years when women have boys, like when I had my sons, everybody was having boys. And that was a generation of boys at that time. If you were having an abortion, you were killing, you know, black men for that, you know, were available, could have been available to our community. And so, and that's what they want us to do, but we just don't understand.
Yeah, when I heard those numbers, and I can't recall them now, so I don't want to repeat them, but when I heard the numbers over the decades of black babies that had been aborted in New York City alone, I was devastated. I mean, because when you think about like our population, um, black population in the United States has remained stagnant. Like it has
Yeah.
not grown. And that's one of the reasons why. What were you gonna say?
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because of birth control options and fertility issues. You
Hmm.
know, one of the things that the piece talked about that I wrote was how they genetically modify food, and we also eat genetically modified food. So when we
Big time.
eat, you know, farm raised sustainable stuff that's, you know, fed with grain, genetically modified vegetables, those things damage our reproductive systems. And so
Hmm.
I talked about that in the piece, and they just kind of ignore that too. But you know, women in other countries get genetically modified food, and so their fertility is damaged through USA, through the State Department. So they don't talk about this stuff, but in numerous ways, you know, black women all over the world are, you know, getting a bit of something tied to this Roe versus Wade. So it's not just, you know, they're going to lose their right. If they lose their right to have an abortion, guess what? They're going to start doing stuff to us because no matter what, they have to control us so that their numbers can grow and stay in power. And they just are not really trying to, you know, white men want these women to have babies. So I
Hmm.
suspect it's going to end, But when it does, it's going to be a problem for us that we have to deal with. And so we need to understand that NSSM 200, that whole entire plan, because this is a long race. This has been in making for 50 years, and they
Can you
still
speak
use this.
more to that for people who are just coming into the room now? What does that? So NSM was a national security memo
Right.
that was
It was,
written by Kissinger.
yes, it was written by Henry Kissinger in, I think, 1974. And that,
Umar points that out a lot too.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, because it's really important. Like, I didn't, I heard about, I know about Henry Kissinger, but like, I didn't really open this conference plan up and read it. And some of the language is so, the only way I could put it is just disrespectful to the rights and needs of other women all over the world. Like, it just talks about exchanging food for birth control
That's
and
crazy.
sterilization, and them, doing things to crops. They give you seeds, and so they give the poor people seeds to grow stuff. But when they grow stuff, it could cause your children to be deformed if you when you eat it. Like, it's wild, just all the stuff that
Crazy.
this plan um, entailed. But it's basically population control, and it's so detailed. It had a plan for Latin America, India, Africa, and
Hmm.
even African Americans. Like, everywhere in the world, they had a plan for specific groups to control the population, and they projected how many people they expected to be born, and so they knew how many people they needed to keep from being born or to kill,
Mm,
or have them born with birth defects so that they are no threat to white people, basically.
damn. Ooh-wee. It's yeah.
It's
Um,
crazy.
it really is. One of the things that when I read the piece, it made me think about was just the lack of a nuanced discussion, particularly from black academics, black folks, just in general. You know what I mean? Um, and it just doesn't seem to be any meaningful discussion about the racial politics of abortion, right? Outside of that
Um,
film, that documentary that came out, oh, it might have been 10 years ago. Remember, it was called My Alpha. Do you remember that?
no,
My
I
Alpha.
haven't. No, I didn't see it.
Wow. So in the comments, if you're listening, can you all let me know if you all saw that documentary? It was called My Alpha 21. And I remember it was attacked immediately from the left, saying, oh, it was funded by a right wing Christian group. They didn't attack the information. And I actually picked that up at the time. I'm like, but is the information true? Like, I remember asking,
Yeah,
they were just saying, oh, it's a right wing group that put it out. It's a right wing group. It's a right wing group. I'm like, okay, but did this happen? I kept going back to that because I don't care who put it out. Is the contents of the documentary accurate or not?
that's me. I don't care who puts it
Yeah.
out. Is it verifiable? Can you
And do
go
you
back?
know? Do you know they actually? So it was really that documentary that kind of exposed it to the grassroots community that because Margaret Sanger had always been spoken about in these very loving and just she was a hero type of terms. Even Planned
Mhm.
Parenthood has an award named after her that Hillary Clinton won.
Ooh, don't get me started.
Okay. And everybody that's listening, please fact check me. I'm open to that, right? Keep me accountable in the comments. Um, and it was just last year that I saw that the New York Planned Parenthood acknowledged after 10 or 12 years from this documentary, when they basically attacked it when it first came out, 10, 12 years later, they acknowledged that Margaret Sanger was indeed racist. She was indeed a eugenicist, but that, you know, providing women with choice and all this and that. So they finally, and then they actually took her name off of stuff. the New York.
Oh,
Yeah, that I remember reading that
wow.
in
I,
2020.
I think I remember
Hmm.
people having some conversation about Margaret Sanger, but that's even like Bill Gates, like his dad and Margaret Sanger, and even his mom
Hmm.
were involved with Planned
I
Parenthood
heard
and
about that
eugenics,
too.
and they were. I think his dad was friends with Henry Kissinger. Like you go back and
All
retrace
these
the
people are
roots,
connected.
everybody is connected, and that is the thing that is was so scary for me, because you could see the heirs, the bloodline. The
Hmm.
father passed it on to the son, and now the son has power and money, and he's out roaming the earth just doing all mannerisms of
Hmm.
things to us. And that, I don't want to go into it, but like,
Jessica, are you asking me what the documentary is called? It was called, let me put it in the chat, it was called My Alpha 21. That's the name of the documentary that I'm talking about. And it came out, I'm guesstimating 10 to 12 years ago. It's been out for a minute. Because I remember that's how I came into the knowledge that Planned Parenthood was actually born out of the eugenics movement.
yeah, and even that, like, you can't get people to
They don't want
admit
to talk
that.
about it.
Yeah, and it's selfishness. Like, I don't want
Very.
to talk about, because I benefit and I like it and I want to have that option, and I, you know, feel like I should be able to do this, and you should be able to do it too. And I don't
Mhm.
care if it was meant to kill you, but you're not dead, so I just want you to be able to
Wow.
do what I do.
I cannot. So here's the other question, right? We kind
Okay.
of talked about when I said, there is not a whole lot of meaningful discussion around the racial politics. I just brought up some of it as an example, like when that documentary came out, it spread quickly through the hood, honey. I was like, oh my God, is this true? And then why do you think that so many black publications avoid seriously speaking about this directly? Why do you think that?
One, because we don't like the truth. We don't like to talk about things that are uncomfortable. It's
Mhm.
controversial. You have to fight with, um, I'm sorry, white people. They don't like to hear you talk about something that they love, even if it harms you. And
Mhm.
so that piece, and then money is involved. A lot of
Yes.
times, who funds, like, you think about Bill Gates. Bill Gates funds everything. He created Common Core. He funds research, medical
Mhm.
research. He used to provide college scholarships and
Mhm.
invest in endowments, and now he
Yep.
does stuff with the government, NIH. So, and they all these people are
World Health
affiliated.
Organization.
Yes, media, he owns Microsoft. So, like, we can't escape it's hard to escape. And so people don't want to rock the boat. You can't hardly even talk on social media about abortion without somebody attacking you if you have a contrary opinion. So, we just find ourselves not really being able to have conversations. And that's a shame, because
Right.
we should be able to express our views. And if it's the truth, that it was born out of a need to control us, and um,
Control our reproduction, control our numbers.
yes,
Yeah.
and not and depopulate the African continent. There are more people in Africa
And they
and
have the youngest
India.
population in the world, the entire continent.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that makes them afraid, because
Oh
that's
yeah.
power,
That's
you
power. Yeah.
know, and they don't like that, so they
Hmm.
have to control
And
us.
the flip side to this is European negative birth rates,
Hmm.
right? In Europe and here in the United States. Um,
Right, they are
and it's funny.
receding.
It's so funny. All of this stuff is connected. It's so funny because Elon Musk, he didn't say the race, but I don't know if you saw, he made headlines like 2 days ago saying that we don't have enough people. We got to start having babies. He talking about white folks.
Oh no, I didn't see
He
that.
didn't say like white people, we don't have enough to replicate ourselves. We got to have more babies. He just said, "Oh, we got to stop. We need more people."
He got enough people. Only got like 50, 11 children. So
He
I'm
do
just
got a
kidding.
lot of kids. He
He
got
has,
like
he has a lot of kids.
6 or 8 kids. Yeah.
But that is the mindset of people like him. I mean, I know people who are physicians, and their wives went to college, and all they do is stay at home and they have babies, and they have 6, 7 kids. They think that they are supposed to populate the earth, and they really do believe that. They think their job is to rule and reign over us. And so they walk about life thinking they're the chosen ones, and we don't really understand that when we are seeing a white male say that, like, he's really believing that he has dominion over the earth and that he should rule over us. And I just think we don't make that connection. Like, we don't read enough, we don't understand what's happening
Hmm.
and how everything's tied to white supremacy. Everything. There's nothing that we experience, we eat, everything has a connection to white supremacy.
You better believe it. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I'll see if I can find that article and or find who wrote about it. But I remember reading about it. It was just like 2 days ago. He said that, and
Oh, I'll have
I'll
to
try to.
go and look and
Hmm.
find it. Twitter will tell you.
Oh yeah, yeah. He definitely been making headlines lately.
He's another one that is he's from South Africa, so of course
Right.
he has an interesting background and an interesting worldview. But I'm just always amazed at how our people support these billionaires when they don't really understand those people are not for us. They want to take us out. Like, we should do everything we can to not give them our money, give them our time, give them any of our energy, because every waking moment they're thinking of how they're going to do some harm to us in some way.
Hmm. What are your thoughts? As just kind of like a follow up to that question, what are your thoughts on Black people, Black women in particular, who identify with the Margaret Sangers of the world and kind of like support um, this particular movement? What are your thoughts, and what are the whys from your perspective? Do you think these sisters do that?
I think we're lost. I think, just being honest, I think
Hmm.
we don't have a culture anymore. I think we are indoctrinated to a point where, like, we have absorbed white supremacist culture. So we don't really understand or take the time to
Hmm.
talk about these connections to white supremacy.
Hmm.
And if you go back and look, like, it's just out there. Like, you can just Google how they got their rights, and then
Hmm.
they didn't include us in the beginning. They included us after, and, like, that is the consistent theme throughout history with these
Yeah.
people. It's like you're always an afterthought, and so I don't want to be nobody's side piece and back up and booty call.
Okay.
Like, bring me in at the beginning so I can make my own choices and understand. But no, that's not how it goes. And so that's why I never wanted to be a part of it, because I understood the history of it. And I don't know,
Me
I think
too.
it's something about
Even
Southern
before
people.
I understood their history, I never identified with feminism, like ever.
Yeah, I'm an old fashioned traditional girl, even though I didn't, I wasn't Christian or anything. My parents weren't Christian. I
Hmm.
still, but there's some cultural things about African Americans that's tied to our culture in Africa. Just some things that we do that are traditional that I just felt like were right and worked. And I felt
Hmm.
like when we tried to adopt some of the things from feminism or white supremacy, it never worked out well for our community. And I always tell people it takes 20 to 25 years for us to see the impact of everything that is implemented under the system of white supremacy. So if you get
Mm.
a policy, it's going to take you about 25 years to see it was bad for us. Like the crime bill, you take the crime bill. And people,
Right.
Black people were like, oh yeah, we need to do something about our kids instead of disciplining your children and making sure your children, do what they needed to do and not have, you know, children out of wedlock, or even if you have children out of wedlock, it's just some things that we can do, tied to poverty, tied to, village raising children like we used to do in our old days. Like, we got away from all of that, and when we did that and took on the individualism of white supremacy versus the collective and the culture that we had in the African American community, that's when we just were lost. And so I just think people are doing whatever they want to because we think now as individuals and we don't think as collective. And that is
Mhm.
what it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to harm us
Mhm. Mhm.
more than white supremacy, because we can't agree on nothing now.
Yeah. Yeah. Twitter is any sign of any of that. Oh,
Oh
don't get me
yeah.
started on that. There's a question from the audience here from the brother. This is his question. He wanted to know if you know of any stories about Black women being steered to abortion clinics in deceptive and nefarious ways. Did you find anything like that in your research when you were writing that piece?
Um, well, I guess you could say all of it, because when you talk about, I don't know if you know about the State Department and how USA and international, our international geopolitics, and how we issue aid, and how we help the poor, that we help make poor
Come
and
on, come
keep
on,
poor. you know you look at all of the things that America has done to destabilize all these different countries in the world, and
talk
then we
about it.
say, after we war with your country, we subvert your government, we get these different groups fighting, you can't control
Hmm.
them, and then people are killing each other, and then just think about war on drugs, and then the people are starving, displaced, they're running and fleeing because their place is on fire. And then
Hmm.
America comes with food. And if you take this food, we know you're desperate, and this food is really contaminated, but you don't know because
Hmm.
you're poor and you're desperate and you're in a camp, and food is just dropping from the sky. Bad rice, bad vegetables, bad whatever. Um, and so then you end up not having a choice. You consume this food. That's how you lure somebody. We talking about third world countries, lesser developed countries. That's one way people are lured. So they eat this stuff, and their reproductive organs are ruined. They have children, or they get pregnant and the babies are aborted. It's just so many different ways. And yet USA is a huge way that America feeds and distributes birth control to sterilization. But just here in America, um, I would say the evangelical movement, they don't necessarily do the abortion piece, but they do put a lot of those pregnancy centers in our communities, and they
Hmm.
minister to
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
and they're always in our communities, and
Right.
they're always offering options. Now, they don't offer birth control and they don't offer abortions, but they basically put you in these places and treat you like prisoners. Like,
Damn.
it's really a strange dynamic. So in all things, we have to go to, or we don't have to, but they make themselves available to control our populations.
Ooh, it's heavy. This is heavy stuff, man. And I appreciate you, Sister A. She said US aid is a CIA front. And listen, it makes sense. I ain't disputing that at all because these people are very creative when it comes to their oppressing of other people around the world and
Oh,
how they try
I,
to maintain U.S. dominance, U.S. supremacy across the world.
I'm just amazed at how many people who wakes up and comes up with all these different ways to be
Child,
evil to
I
people.
wonder the same thing. Like, what kind of devolved mind comes up with this
Demonic,
stuff?
like, it's just so evil to just sit and have a plan, and that we're going to create these ways to feed people poison. Um,
Yeah.
so
Just, I mean, but if you think about it, like when you think about the Trail of Tears and how they did, indigenous people here, they're still doing it.
yep, yep. We have so many examples, and so that's kind of why I'm always amazed that Black women who take up this mantle for white feminism,
It's
and even though
crazy.
you call it Black feminism, I just from my personal experience, I just feel like women who do that have had bad experiences with men,
Yeah. A lot
and
of
that's
it is, yeah.
and they should go to therapy.
Politicized, yeah, politicized failed relationships, girl.
Yeah, or even if it's abuse, I know a lot of women have been abused physically,
Hmm.
sexually. I'm not discounting any of that. Please don't think
Of
that,
course not.
you
Yeah.
know. But I just want to say it because I've been a victim myself. But I don't hate
Hmm.
men. I don't, you know, it doesn't make me want to do anything negative to my community. It doesn't make me want to mistreat
Right.
men. It doesn't make me want to go and get in bed with white supremacy to do
Talk about it.
harm to our community. I just feel as though we have to be more responsible because everything that we do, it has a connection to something. We're interconnected. We don't do anything and it doesn't impact somebody else.
Right. Right. Yeah, man, chat is going off, is going off. So I do have one final question for you, but I also wanted to give the audience an opportunity. If you guys have any other questions for our guest Marley here, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to ask my final question, and so while she's answering that, you guys can think of any questions that you guys may have and drop that in the chat. If you just came in, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and share this broadcast with your network. And yeah, I'm gonna ask my final question. Um, so I mean, obviously, we're talking about Roe versus Wade because white liberals are losing their shit because the Supreme Court is a certain kind of way, and all these cases from Texas and Florida and other places are making its way
Hmm.
to the Supreme Court, and the court seems to be primed, if you will, with what's her name, Justice Amy Coney Barrett that Trump just
Yes.
appointed before
Hmm.
he left the White House, seems to be primed to, you know, finally wield her power to
Hmm.
take down. I mean, these white evangelicals been fighting 50 years,
A long
a long
time.
time. Yeah, since '73, I think, when it was. Yeah, so that's why we're having this conversation today because white liberals are all in a tizzy. So, the conversation of white society's plans and attempts at depopulation are definitely often dismissed and shrugged off as a conspiracy theory, with all
Right.
the evidence pointing to the contrary. Why are we so reluctant in seriously confronting their commitment to our genocide?
I would say we are comfortable. We don't want to rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
We like what we have.
Mm-hmm.
We're afraid to challenge white supremacy. Um, we don't want to lose any friends. And I think a lot of us actually think that we benefit um, from Roe versus Wade. We don't really understand that there is no benefit to us. Look at us now. We've been controlled for 50 years, and now they've imported, their next buffer class, and they don't need us anymore. So, we don't know how to play the game of politics, and we don't understand that we've been in a war since we got here 400 years ago, and the war is still going on. It evolves. It never stops. And so, if we don't understand, we can't talk about it because we don't understand. If we don't understand our history and their history, and a lot of times, you look at the CRT issue.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to talk about history.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to read. You want somebody to read the information and give you a 5 minute or 15 minute discussion, and then you're supposed
Hmm.
to be educated. You have a PhD, and that's like it just doesn't work like that. And so we really need to um, work on confronting these issues. We can't just keep thinking everything that they present to us is okay. Even this depopulation, birth control, abortion issue, it's impacted us. Like our numbers haven't changed for so long. We have basically allowed them to engineer us out of society. Like we
Mm.
are still going to be the same bottom of the totem pole, and they leapfrogged other groups in front of us. Um, so it has an
Bottom
impact.
caste.
Yeah,
I think I first heard Michelle Alexander in her book, The New Jim Crow, describe descendants of enslaved Africans as a caste in the
yeah,
United States, similar to the untouchables, who also happen to be dark skinned
yeah,
in India.
yeah.
Um,
If you can't get away from, if you can't pass, then you're an untouchable.
hmm hmm Here's a question from Jessica. She's been really active in the chat, and this is a question because this comes up a lot, and I do see where conservative states have like threatened to put women in jail for having an abortion. That's something I'm also uncomfortable with. She just wanted to understand, I guess what your perspective is on that.
I don't think women should be put in jail for having an abortion because people do things sometimes out of desperation.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes they may have been sexually assaulted and they don't want to
Hmm.
have a child by a relative. But people don't realize that the majority of people who are sexually assaulted are assaulted by people they know, relatives, parents, uncles, close people. So if you get pregnant, you don't want to necessarily have a child that you have to live the rest of your life with. So
Hmm.
I don't feel like people should be put in jail. I, I just I don't understand that. But that's a deterrent.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's for us. I don't think they care if we have abortion. They don't care what we do. I
Yeah.
think it's more so about white women because they are so passionate about it, and their numbers are decreasing. So this whole Roe
Right.
versus
That's
Wade
what it's about.
is about white women need to lay down and have babies so they can get them numbers up. They don't care about us. You can have abortion all day long. They probably won't do anything to you, except for now in Texas, they've tied it to money.
Uh-huh.
So, people can get financial reward and shoot you. They can do whatever they want to. So, you may have evil people who have evil
Jeez,
intentions.
crazy, crazy shit. Another question from the Black Mental Effect wants to ask you, in your opinion, I believe what she means is how do we reach Black people?
I don't know. I have been doing this for a couple of years, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though whoever's coming is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't believe fire is hot until they are in it.
Like my
And
grandma used to say, you don't believe fat meat greasy. You know that's a Southern.
yeah, so it's that type of thing,
Right.
and I've been, people call me uh, a downer or negative because I just give people what I see. And, a lot of times people don't know the circles that you're in. They don't know where you get information from. Like, things. And so
Right.
you try to share it with us and they just like reject it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're going to get a lot of Black people. I think Black people are going to have to be like, how after Tulsa they were burned out and they had to walk the railroad tracks to go to this town hide in the woods.
Yep.
Like it's gonna take Black people having to experience that or being basically blocked out of society and not having a way to take care of themselves
Mm-hmm.
to get it. And
Right.
I'm fine with that because
Right.
I always tell people I'm gonna tell you till I can't.
Right.
And there are people who are telling you we have instruction manuals. I got this book, Dr. Claude Anderson, I keep on my desk. I like you can tell people, you can take people to water, but you can't make them drink it. You can give
Right.
people food, but you can't make people eat it. And so, I think we should stop trying to think we're going to reach everybody, because some of these people are conditioned for white supremacy, and
Yeah.
they're going
And
to have to
conditioned
learn.
well, especially through
Yeah,
the education system.
right. So I just can't waste my time.
This has just been like such a good discussion and such a good turnout as well in terms of people being engaged in the chat. Do you have any like final comments or final words you'd like to share with the audience? Maybe let people know where they can find you, what social media channels you're on, if people want to like stay in contact with you, that kind of stuff.
Ah, yes. Well, thank you, Jessica. I think Jessica follows me on Medium, and the Black Mental Effect. Everybody who posts questions, thank you so much. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Marley K20. I have a website called Marleyisms. That's where I write. I also do videos from time to time. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Marleyisms. You can type in Marley K. I think it's two Marley K's. So look for the black one because the other one is white. um, and I don't do a lot of social media. I don't hardly ever do lives because I just been like really nervous about it. But I'm gonna start because I have questions. And I'm looking forward to talk to you offline because I have some questions I want to ask you about.
Of
But
course.
we have to be prepared for what's happening. There are so many
Mhm.
things going on all over the world,
Yes.
and depopulation is big. Everything that we're talking about today is tied to
It's
depopulation.
connected.
Roe versus Wade is just one thing, but
Hmm.
there are so
There's
many
other
things that
things,
they
right?
have. And so you got to read. I always tell people, read. Don't
Read,
just read.
read, read, right?
Don't just read who you like. Read people that you don't like. Read people
Yeah,
that they tell us not to trust, because what I'm
that's right.
finding is conspiracy theorists actually ain't conspiracy theorists. They actually know some stuff.
Hmm.
And hey, we just been sleeping on it because we have been programmed to trust white supremacy. So just read. Just read, study history, because we are going back to a place that we already came from, and it's because we don't learn, we don't trust each other, we don't like each other,
Hmm.
and we think the person that harms us is our friend,
Mm,
and we don't work together with our brothers and sisters, so that we
we
think,
have to.
yeah, so work together, learn to understand the system of white supremacy, and read some of this old stuff that they created back in the 60s and 70s, because it
Hmm.
is applicable today.
Yes, Ashe. Shout out to Sister Awa. Thank you so much for the super chat, sis. I really appreciate you. You are so supportive.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody, all the folks in the chat. Like some of these are my regulars, like Mr. Untouchable. What's up?
Thank you.
um, yeah, he was talking about white genetic survival. That's from Mama Frances Cress Welsing. Yeah.
Yes, that is, you are on point.
Hmm.
Definitely an issue. This role thing
Sister
is
Awa,
not by
girl, you got
accident.
me cracking up with that one. She said the difference between a conspiracy and a fact is 3 to 6 months.
These days, yes, because they will
Listen,
they will say something, and then you turn around and be like,
listen.
hey.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, this was a really great conversation. Obviously, you are welcome to come here anytime, and you and I can definitely chat offline. You know how to get in contact with me. But thanks so much to the listening audience. This has really been good. I do want to encourage you all to read the full piece. It is linked in the description of this video.
Please do.
Also, for people who came in late, you're more than welcome like to rewind. I did ask some really good questions, so I want to encourage people to rewind and listen to the full video and share it in your circles. I'd be interested to see what kind of feedback I get, from a wider audience. If everybody's listening, share it in your circles. I'd really be interested in seeing what people have to say. So with that, we're gonna end for tonight. But next week, I want to let y'all know to be back here Wednesday, 8 p.m., same place, same time. I am actually going to be hosting Brother Omawali, Africa. He also has a YouTube page, so I will be hosting him and Brother Kamal Franklin. We will be doing a follow up, a part two to our commercialization of the movement. Series. So this will be part two. We did part one a couple months ago. So both of those brothers will be joining me on Real Talk with ZSJ next Wednesday at 8. So make sure y'all write that on your calendar. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not. And make sure you got the notifications turned on, because sometimes when you subscribe and you forget to hit the notifications, you don't always know when we go live. So I want to encourage people to do that. All right. See y'all later. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.